I apologise to the regular listeners of this podcast that it's been a while. I've been trying to reflect on what I want to talk about in this podcast today. There's just been a lot that's happened over the past month on the internet that I just. It actually angers me, and I shouldn't. And I've taken some time off using social media for my own personal benefit because of that fact. Because every day there's something new going on, there's some drama, and you can sit here and say, well, that's kind of what you expect from the internet, but the internet was never designed for that. And I don't want to stray too much, and I don't want to make this a really charged episode of this podcast because of the fact that obviously this is about improving mentally, but I think social media as a whole has more of a detrimental value to your mental health than people actually realize sometimes. It's always discussed, it's always, your internet privacy, your everything else, where you have to really be careful of who you speak to and what you do on the internet because you, once it's there, sort of thing. And I apologize that I sound really gravelly if I do. I am coming off the back of having cold and flu, which is a little bit annoying. And obviously the fact that it's been nearly, I think it's coming up to like 5 to 6 weeks since my last episode. But yeah, it's. I, d- I don't want to mention things in particular because it kind of makes it more bias from my point of view of how it sounds. But when you've got people that are trying to discourage a reunion, or you've got people selling things for the sake of it, even though it doesn't really give any monetary value other than to your own self interest, and the way people react when they're against that, it's hard to look at, it's hard to watch, it's hard to listen to. That's why I remove myself from it most of the time, and I would hope that some of you guys would do the same because, especially with social media was supposed to be a place where you could gather socially with friends and family and make new friends and find new family. And it just became a cesspit of greed and envy and gluttony. You know, and I say that wholeheartedly, that it's all the internet and social media has become is a place of greed, gluttony, and envy. And yeah, as I say, it's difficult to look at. When I post my videos on YouTube, I post them because I have an interest of doing them, and I would hope that other people take enjoyment from consuming them. I'm not interested in the numbers. I look at the numbers to see my progress, but I'm not interested in the numbers. You know, and I don't really like talking about, the channel as a whole, and I like to keep this a very much separate entity. But when you're forced with all this shit, to put it bluntly, you kind of sit there and you ask yourself why are you doing this? I watched a really good video by Tommy in it the other day, and it actually inspired me to continue making videos and continue making these podcasts because the whole point of the channel, of the podcast, was to be another voice in the room when you're at your lowest, and using games, trying to use other forms of media and nostalgia as a platform to provide people with an escape or a comfort or both. And when you keep constantly reminding yourself of that's why you're doing it, that's where, that's where you see it. And I know that these podcasts don't get many views. I'm under no grand delusion, and I do post content on YouTube as if I do have a lot more of a viewing than I do. But as I say, I'm not interested in numbers. YouTube has a crafty way of channeling out negative comments. So I imagine there are people out there that would have negatively commented on my videos. That's, people have nothing better to do than to bully, shame, and judge and discriminate against other people. And the thing I want to ask is, what happened to human kindness? What happened to live and let live? I follow under the ethos of memento mori, which in its simplest term is to be mindful of death. And I know for a podcast that's supposed to be improving yourself mentally, it is a bit of a morbid thought, but at the same time you can take that and go, yeah, death is on the horizon eventually, but what do I do in between now and then? When I'm dead there, collecting my thoughts and preparing for the end, whether the end comes instantaneously or whether it's slow, what are the things that I want to think about that I'm proud of, and what have I provided for people and my own family and my friends? That's what I want to leave behind. And you have all these people that are crying out because they feel like they have to. And when I say crying out, shouting out is a better word. The people that are crying out for the help, 9 times out of 10 actually need the help. But you've got other YouTubers attacking each other. Just, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? So you've got a YouTuber that criticizes another YouTuber because they're trying to sell something when they should be really staying in their lane. And you've got another that is like, no, why should I have to stay in my lane? The well, the line in the sand with that one is, don't try and force your way into a market that has already a dominant figure and a couple of other subsidiaries next to it. You are just doing it for money. And if you had gone for something completely different, rather than just doing it for the sake of it, then fine. And for the person that criticizes it, fair enough, but your words, I'm afraid, aren't going to change anything. That's the way I see it. And you have done the mature thing of moving away from it all. But as I say, I'm sure if you've gotten to this point, you know exactly what I'm on about. I don't understand why. It's because, people's names carry weight, and those names also carry a lot of profit. And when those names are utilized in a certain way, profit is there to be made. People are just playing the game, and the game is being played. No, I don't agree with it, to be honest. I think, you know, people are just doing things for the sake of it these days because they know they can, because they know they have the ability to, especially when it's only benefiting themselves. It's not benefiting the populace, it's not benefiting the consumer. It's not, you know, we're so engrossed by capitalism and consumerism that if it's got someone's face on the product, it means it's good and people have to buy it. I mean, you think. Ugh. Say you take a pair of Air Jordans, for example. As much as good of a shoes as Air Jordans are, Nike is such a powerhouse that realistically they don't need the Air Jordan brand to do it. Same with Adidas and the Yeezys. If they just release those shoes, they're powerful enough to sell. I mean, some people may, some people may say that I'm missing the point, but that is just the first example that came to my head. And, if you want to comment and say I'm just chatting out my ass at this point, half the time I am, but half the time it's raw opinion on things that realistically don't matter. You know, Beats by Dr. Dre as another prime example of that, where they're stupidly expensive. You can get a pair of AKGs and still do the same job, if not better than Beats. It's because it's endorsed. We're so succumbed to endorsement. So yeah, I can see the monetary value of it, and I can also see that there isn't a need for it. It is what it is in terms of mass populace. And some people were like, "Oh, I really like my Air Jordans. I like my Beats by Dr. Dre." Yeah, fair enough, fine. I'm not saying it's wrong to buy these products. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not criticizing anyone for doing it. It's not about the consumer in this instance. It's about the provider. That is more what I'm referencing. You know, you can endorse all these healthier alternative products, but a Lunchable is still a Lunchable, and they're pretty damn fucking good. We didn't need another alternative. The alternative is a taco snack, where you can make wraps instead of biscuit sandwiches. So, we didn't need anything else to come onto the market. And, you're taking statistics and trying to provide a cheaper alternative product to kids when in reality you didn't need to. I mean, you didn't even need to go up against Gatorade and Lucasade, but you still did. That's the thing. The power of social media in terms of consumerism is rife at the moment. And to turn my attention to the other point I came across about a reunion of a band that has caused hellfire because the media has perpetuated this article from a couple of years ago about certain individuals associating with one another, which turned out to be false. Who the fuck cares? Who the fuck cares? Why are we so obsessed with cancelling other people? Why are we so obsessed with bringing a downfall to the rich and famous? And then criticising them because they don't respond? fucking good on the people for not responding and breaking into it. I feel sorry for people that get regularly harassed for just simply playing music or for simply being. If you're actually doing something wrong, and I said this in a previous episode, if you're actually doing something that's hurting people, that's actually hurting people, then yeah, I'm not surprised you get a bit of harassment. But moving on and making new music under the name that you came up with, that isn't offensive, that isn't derogatory, that's always got that personal attachment that the music always have, and doing it in your friend's honor and name, the people that are out there trying to cancel that because they feel that they're owed something when they couldn't be any further away from it, baffles me. It really does. Really does. Power of social media. And that's the thing. And the band that I mentioned lost their frontman or front person to, trigger warning here, suicide. Because of comments that crop up all over the internet about them. Words, believe it or not, can hurt you. Sticks and stones may break my bones. Yes, words definitely fucking hurt. They do. I'm guilty for saying things. Everyone on this planet is guilty for saying something that hurts another human being. Whether it be trivial, whether it be minuscule, whether it be serious, whether it be detrimental, words can still hurt. And it's, as a result of being in lockdown for so long, the whole planet basically shutting off, you sit there and question how words are hurting people when you're showing the perfect person in front of them on a regular basis. I'm not even going to touch or scratch the surface that, is, and I did kind of touch this on a previous episode, of just be who you want to be. It doesn't matter to anyone else. Be what you want to be. Show people your identity. Show people your individuality. There is no agenda to be made. There isn't. People want to express their individuality and not feel like they're put into a box. Do I understand it? No. No, I don't. But in principle, yes, I do. Live and let live. I had someone turn around and say to me the other day that, and I hate to charge a topic here, but I had someone turn around and say to me the other day that being gay was unnatural and being trans was wrong. And I was so taken aback by that. So taken aback. I am neither one of those things, but even then, I'm sat here as a straight hetero white man that gets all the grief and the abuse because I'm that, and is still sat here taken aback by people being transphobic and homophobic and being like, why do you care so much? Why do you care so much? It's your brilliant show. I recommend it on that topic Heartstopper. And to be fair, Sex Education, both of them really highlight growing up growing up from your young adolescent years to young adult years. And it really, really drives home the things that people are going through as a result to ignorance and arrogance towards something that in reality is just someone being an individual human being, an individual person that's trying to express themselves. And everyone else is trying to instantly play the, oh, but it's going to cause more sexual harassment and abuse. I don't want to even bring up the statistics, and one day I would like to speak to a human being that, you know, thinks this. I personally do not believe that the statistics would raise if we allowed people to be people and just accepted that we're not all cut and dry the same. The science doesn't lie, no. And it's not something that people are trying to argue. People are just trying to be themselves, trying to be an individual and not be put into a box and not be generalized and stereotyped. Stereotyped? I was about to say something completely different then. Stereotyped. People don't. I don't blame them for that. I get generalized and stereotyped every day I walk out my door, whether it's verbally or not. Do I care? No. Am I a fence sitter? Yes. I am a fence sitter and I observe and I speak my opinions. The opinions that you're thrusting onto people is costing lives, and I think people need to start realizing that is not allowing a person to be an individual, to be a human being. To be honest, some people don't even like the word human because it's got man in it. A people, you know. People want to be people. People want to be individual. People want to be able to express themselves. And I try so hard with my content to provide everyone and include everyone into a space where they can just sit and watch me play games, or they can sit and listen to these podcasts and gain something from it. And quite honestly, social media right now is just a cesspit of negative, discriminating prejudice against people just trying to be people. Why give a fuck about wanting to use they and them? Why? Why give, yes, I will admit there are people out there that do it for attention. But that's, for some people, kind of the point. And I'm going to shame CMHT on this one. I remember being sat in a room. I was a mental health support worker at the time. And they said, well, they're clearly attention seeking. Yes, but why? I won't describe the scenario. But you had a community mental health team professional turn around and say that they were attention seeking. And I just said, I wish I'd said something. I wish I did. I really do. But my point is people do attention seek. And you gotta wonder why. You gotta actually ask yourself, why are they seeking attention? So there's a whole different kind of worms when it comes down to people just doing it because they, have and they don't have anything and they crave attention for it. But the people that, you know, psychologically believe that they don't associate with either gender and are requesting to be referred to as they, them, aren't always attention seeking. That is a genuine case. And just respect it. Just respect it. Stop giving so much of a shit about it. Oh, but I don't want to refer to someone as a group of people. They can be used as a singular. Them can be used as a singular. Even if they want to be Z or Z, and they're trying to move feminine and masculine vocabulary. We are one of the only languages, one of the rare few languages that don't overcompensate for the amount of female and male words that we actually have. Our language is complex, but Europe have a lot of feminine and masculine words that mean the same thing. I mean the exact same thing. I couldn't give you any examples because I'm not a linguistic like that. But for anyone that does know that, even South America, a Latina and a Latino. Like, why? What's the issue with trying to combine it? And I'm not going to go into a whole rant about, where all this comes from or force feed you my opinions on it. Because I do have my opinions on it, and if someone would actually like to confront me and speak to me on those opinions in an episode, then fine. But for the most part, I sit here and say, stop giving so much of a shit. Stop giving people the platform that will discriminate and cause prejudice to other people. Stop giving them the platform. Stop even reacting to them. Because as soon as they're off their pedestal, they'll give up. You know, people, as I've mentioned recently, with, certain healthier lunch alternatives, have been non-stop harassing certain individuals because of fair comments that they made and trying to speak about it like an adult when they're acting like a complete child about it. Yeah, probably did hurt, but probably hurt because it's true. But you're too knee deep in it to give up on it. Too knee deep in it to walk away without ruining your credibility even more. Otherwise, you wouldn't have got so hurt by it. Basic psychology. And if you do happen to listen to this, yeah, give me a message. I'll happily have a conversation with you. Because to be honest, I'm sick of hearing you moan about something that, realistically, is right. I don't want to be a YouTuber that ends up endorsing millions of fucking brands just for the sake of generating more income. I'd rather give you guys my main product, which is media to consume. That is all I want to do. I don't want to, you know, launch so many different brands. If people would like merchandise, then I'll give them merchandise. But if that's what people want, if people genuinely ask me about doing merchandise, then yeah, of course I will. But I'm not just going to thrust it upon people for the sake of getting green in my pocket. I'd rather take the slow way. I'd rather spend the next 10 years doing this and only get to my final objective at a point where I'm considering walking away. You know, or I carry on and not make any money from it ever. Because that's never the point. And the point that I've always made is I've wanted to provide people with content so that they feel less alone. Some YouTubers don't even realise that that's what they're doing. And the people that do know that's what they're doing, and I will name call Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, Dan TDM, even Game Theory. There's so many others, and I wish I could name them all. You know exactly what you're doing, you know exactly what kind of content you provide, and you know what you give to the community. And before anyone jumps in and says, yes, but they have their own brands, yes. Because they create content for people to consume, whether that be digital or physical. Or showing their love for their favourite beverage, so making their own coffee chain. People want to ask, how is that any different? It just is. Can't quantify or I'm trying to use psychological words from my course and it didn't quite work out for me in that moment. But no. Everyone has a go-to type of tea or coffee. So someone bringing out their own coffee, it's like beer, it's like cider, it's like alcohol. Like people prefer their certain brands of alcohol. Yes, realistically, did any of these manufacturers need to step into the market? No. But not every vodka tastes the same. It does kind of contradict my a couple of my previous statements, but I hope people will realise what it is I'm actually trying to say and manage to dissect and digest what my point is. Because honestly, it's getting to a point now where it's just so tedious to look at. You know, it's draining people, it's dragging them down. You know, yes, hate bait gets a lot of clicks and a lot of likes, a lot of comments. But if you're seriously using that as a way for your fans to consume your content, it is shameful. It is. 100%. There's only so much that I could sit on the fence without having a foot on either side of the gate. And that didn't make a lot of sense, but the metaphor is still there, and people, I hope you do see it the way I did. But on the one hand, I can get people's frustrations. On the other hand, I can get the provider's frustrations. At the same time, either don't give a shit and deal with it, or ignore it. Leave it alone. Because honestly, life is not worth worrying about other people's circuses. It's not. Watch them. Yeah. Watch them for your own amusement if that's what you're into. Sometimes I do, I'll admit that. I watch the drama unfold because my life's a little quiet. Yeah. Do I agree with it? No. Normally I sit there and think, why? So, I hate, I hate that I do episodes like these, especially when it's just me talking, because I feel like these kind of conversations would be better with guests. But when you're a small, little independent YouTube channel with barely any subscribers or views, I can't expect any more. So to the people that listen, thank you very much. Whether you've come from just happened to come across the podcast, or whether you come through the channel and actually are interested in this sort of end of the spectrum of my channel, then thank you. Doesn't matter who you are, whether you listen for a few seconds to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the whole thing. Thank you. Because I hope that you can take away something from what it is I'm trying to say. The art of not giving a fuck. Something I'm learning more and more these days. And to be honest, I hope that I hope for a better future for all people. Whether that be reflective, whether they repent, or whether they better themselves in any way. We're not all saints, we're not all sinners. Live and let be. No, live and let live. And everything else that I said that I can't bring to my mind right now. But, as I always say, towards improving mentally every day, it takes time. And I'm sorry it took so much time to release this episode. And I can't make any promises when the next one comes out. I will see you in the next one. Using my YouTube outro there. See you soon.